Hey everybody, and welcome to Neurolinguistic Astrology Live. And we are finally going to be doing some superhero synastry tonight. I'm very excited. First, let's do some introductions and welcomes to the show, because I realized I never really do any introductions to what we actually are going to be covering tonight on this presentation. This is actually something that was supposed to be going on Sunday and then on Wednesday and all of that kind of stuff. So I am super pumped to actually be able to do this properly with you all. I have a really fun presentation planned for everyone tonight, for all of you superhero friends tonight. Oh my gosh, I heard noises already. We're going to be doing a synastry reading between none other than one of my actually two of my favorite superheroes, Wonder Woman and Superman. And in doing this synastry, we're also going to discover a little bit more about each of these characters in the whole scheme of everything, and also as a way to explain my lens as it comes to neurolinguistic astrology. First of all, neurolinguistic comes from the idea of NLP, and NLP is neurolinguistic programming, and the idea that the words that we say to ourselves matter in addition to the words that we use to communicate to others. And not just words, let's say communication in general. We use a number of things, words are just symbols, right? So if we think about the way we communicate with each other, it's a series of symbols strung together that we all each have our own meanings that we attribute to. So when we think of astrology already has these stories that are attached to many of the luminaries and stars and planets that exist in the sky today. So when we look at that, in addition to mythos that already exists, then we can get a clearer understanding into what our birth charts can tell us, as well as what those charts can tell us when we overlay them and intertwine them with others. So as you know, I love doing synastries. It's been a little while since my last one. I think the last one I did was Bowie and Amon. Maybe I'm compiling them all tonight and putting them in a separate little spot. So if you want to get a synastry reading from me and you are interested in this type of content, which is all about like love and relationships as it comes to the stars, you make sure to leave me a like, share, and subscribe, as well as I will be reorganizing a lot of my sites so that the content's a little bit more organized as far as the shows go. So this is doing it live. I have a presentation prepped, but the interpretation of what these charts will be are going to come through live, as far as the full wolf moon that we have going on right now, a full moon in Leo with the sun sitting in Aquarius right now. So as you know, like, I love oppositions. Oppositions are like a battery. They provide additional power through the work of what you would think are different polarities, but you can find a lot of commonalities in the opposing force. Like Wolfie's, oh yeah, Wolfie's like decided to just make a lot of noise now all of a sudden. Maybe I'll bring him on camera at one of these live stream shows coming up. So last week I also did a live stream show with my friend Alex, who is also my shuffle instructor, beaming in live from Costa Rica. And hey Alex, if you're watching this, and we did her astro stack. So we'll be going through all of those astro stacks, all of that stuff as it comes to Wonder Woman as a character, and I'll get into explanations of all of that, and then Superman as a character. And so that will give you a little bit perspective of how, when I'm writing the Dragon Warriors, as how I've developed the characters, myself included, who is, I keep forgetting, like, I am the main character of this story, a version of me. So, and that's something to bear in mind with this as well, as we are universal beings. But what does that mean in practice? And that's where stories are really, really important in helping to explain things that are just really, really difficult to, sober, raw, like PowerPoint presentation, even though, yeah, I have a PowerPoint presentation right now, so let's go. Neurolinguistic Astrology Live. It's been a while. It's also been a little bit too. I actually didn't even introduce myself. I'm Rachel Z, your resident Sorceress Supreme and Star Sailor Cosmos, because if you think of the interpretation of astronaut, that actually translates to Star Sailor and Star Sailor, right? Sailor Moon. So if we think about the seas of the night sky and the seas of the ocean, there's a lot of commonalities there as it comes to symbology and ship. If we think of a mothership, the Earth is nothing but a mothership. And that's why it's Captain Planet who's saving the Earth and all that stuff. So let's get into it. We've got the Synastry of Superheroes. Yay, all my animations stayed intact. I wanted to just get into here before I get into the birth charts of Wonder Woman and then Superman. I'm also going to get into how I figured out what their birthdays are, because it's when you're creating a character, you already know what their birth date will be. For example, Captain America's birthday is July 4th, Independence Day. So that's not surprising, and that's done on purpose because of the characters that they are. Now, that being said, when it comes to the year of their birth, I overlaid this with when they were first created, so the first comic book in which they made their debut, and the year that was in. Birth time is hard because you'll see how birth time is attributed to your ascendant or rising sign. And so you can, and this is actually a good practice for those of you who, if you want to get a reading and you don't know what your exact time of birth is, you can infer it based on how the housing system may line up. So I tried a few lies. I tried one combination with Wonder Woman, but it seemed to fit, and I will get into that in just a bit. As well as there's documentation, and we're going to go through that as well because I did some research. And this document, you want to say that this presentation will be available off of Sacred Soma Alchemy in the Neurolinguistic Astrology resource section, which I'm building out along with our Nature's Apothecary stuff as well, so that it's a little bit more organized as a hub. But yeah, just as far as it came to just determining the birth time of these characters, remember it's the character, and I'm going to be doing a live reading as Supergirl of the Multiversity comic book because there's some really good intel in there. They just dropped it in there about how reality works, and in there's 52 worlds, right? And each of the 52 worlds has their version of Superman. And there's this cartoon character, Rabbit. He can't tell the difference between the different Superman, even though many of them look a little different. He's like, as long as you are wearing the S, I know it's you. So that's something to kind of bear in mind as it comes to these characters and holding the mantle of what these characters are. There's an article I read about how characterization your character and determining that is also your destiny. And yeah, that's true, because depending on the character that you're deciding to play, that's going to mean that certain timelines are going to be available to you and certain ones are not. And as it comes to synastry, it's going to mean that certain connections are going to make more sense and click a lot more for you, and some will just, maybe you'll be enemies later. So another synastry to kind of do even with Superman would be him and Lex Luthor, to see if you could see where that friendship fell apart. All right, so without further ado, let's get into Wonder Woman's birth chart without all my preamble of setting the stage. Okay, so Wonder Woman's birth chart. I picked up this badass picture of her that I wanted to show off. My sister has very specific, there's each different costumes, right? So if you think of DC, they do have a lot more autonomy with their illustrators. I find that there's a lot more variations in the costuming of from issue to issue. I mean, and then you add the fact that there's like a multiversity at play there too. But Wonder Woman, her birthday is said to be March 22nd. Now, I'm going to explain this. This is what is said in DC. That I couldn't find the comic book exactly that says this. It makes sense. I will get into why March 22nd makes sense, but I have seen that October something has been celebrated as Wonder Woman's birthday, and that's because that's, I think, the comic book that she first had as like a title character, and she had her own solo adventure in it. She first appeared in, hold on, I'm going to, remember I told you guys I have research, and I wrote this down because I don't want to misspeak about this, because I've realized, and myself is included in this, that these characters are very dear to us, and it's, if I'm going to make assumptions, I'm going to let you guys know why I've made those assumptions, so that if I'm mistaken, you guys can take it forward. But okay, so Wonder Woman's first appearance was in December 1941's All-Star Comics. And so Princess Diana celebrates it in March, and I say it's likely because she's the offspring of a Greek-Roman goddess. So she has lined up her birthday to line up with the astrological new year of Aries. So, and December 1941 is how I've determined Wonder Woman's actual date of birth, because that is the year in which she first came to be. So that's how I figured out that. And then also fun to note, fun fact, I guess kind of fun fact, is that Diana Prince, so her alter ego, just celebrated on the same day. She celebrates Diana Prince's birthday on May 25th. So I have that there. Yes, March 22nd, 1941, and Diana Prince's birthday is May 25th. So that is that, and then let's get into the actual chart. Actually, I should get into a little bit of how Wonder Woman came to be. I didn't know this, but Wonder Woman was actually created by a psychologist and his wife, and they were in a polyamorous relationship, something like that, where they were living with another woman, and this woman used to wear these like bracelets, which were used as the inspiration behind Wonder Woman's gauntlets. But there's other things. I think her in general, her persona was an inspiration, as well as the fact that the guy's wife was like, you gotta make your next heroine a woman, and she is one of the first superheroes. And I'll get into Superman's in just a bit, but neither Wonder Woman or Superman are the first superhero. Wait for that reveal later. So the birth chart, Wonder Woman's birth chart. Okay, just hold on a second. Just checking my levels here. Live streaming, you always have to the tech has not been, I mean, I guess it's Age of Aquarius, but the tech hasn't been kind lately. All right, so her birth chart. Da, 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 Wonder Woman. I want to see if I can make this any bigger. No, I'll leave it. It's okay. I can see. You guys should be able to see it okay. I'm just the one who's blind here. I'm going to have to peek closer. Okay, so see what I mean? How the sun is right there at the cusp, just starting out. So Aries starts the new zodiac year. I'm posting on Golden Sugar the mix that Kevin so wonderfully made for you. You can get it if you just leave us your email and you want to join our mailing list for all our fun VIP events and things like that. But we do a song, and he does a beautiful job, even though I did not follow any of the rules of harmony and key mixing. But it's a journey around the zodiac from Aries to Pisces, and in it you can kind of see where the transitions are. Like, just like people, if you're finding yourself in this area, it depends. Some people, I think it depends on everything else going on in the chart. And so let's look at everything else in Wonder Woman's chart. She is an Aries woman. I am not surprised at that at all. But it does coincide, as I said, with everything as far as like her mother, and I cannot pronounce her name. The Queen of the Amazons, is Wonder Woman's mother. And there are two accounts of how she was born. One being that she was made of clay and she was like blessed, and Diana came to life, and she was named after the moon goddess. I was reading one account of how they originally said that the Queen of the Amazons prayed to Aphrodite, and Aphrodite was the one who made a deal with them and the godlets, and that their island of Themistria. Well, that's the other thing. I couldn't put Themistria is her birthplace. And I did have Wonder Woman, remember, it's the character, right? Not necessarily when Diana was born, even though Diana Prince is her alter ego. And that's a fun discussion, right? Like, who's the main character? Is it Diana Prince, or is it Wonder Woman? Is it Superman, or is it Clark Kent? But one would say that they're both. But going back to Wonder Woman, I'm so going off on a tangent. Let's go here. Let's go around the wheel, starting with her sun. Really close to her sun is the South Node, meaning that the North Node is directly opposing her sun. That's an interesting position. I do think it's interesting here that the South Node is right on the sun. The South Node's a lot of like past lives stuff, and a lot of past lives stuff. And I don't think I got into the other story as to how Wonder Woman was born. The other idea is that she's actually a daughter of Zeus. And yeah, I don't know how it could. It's possible Zeus got around, as we all know. But having the South Node there is typically a lot of past life stuff and an aptitude for being able to, not an aptitude, I shouldn't say it like that. I mean, it's more like there's activity that you have had, things in past lives that'll come up now. And if Wonder Woman's like an archetype of what it is to be a warrior archetype, a woman archetype, that she does carry all of that with her in this character. So yeah, I think that goes. And we've got Black Moon Lilith in Taurus. I'm gonna make this a little bit so we can see. Black Moon Lilith is in Taurus. We've got Saturn in Taurus, as well as Jupiter and Uranus. Is that Uranus? No, that's Pluto, I think. I haven't used this one in a little bit of a while. Hold on a second. I'm just trying to look here at how they're looking at it. Yeah, so Pluto looks like that they're using this one of Pluto. Have you seen the other one of Pluto where it looks like the P? And did I say I might have mistakenly called it Uranus? Uranus is in Taurus, though, and Pluto is in Leo, it looks like. So let me just double check that again. Apologies, I just want to make sure I am accurate. This is also, I'm also updating the site because I'm using this calculator. I was taking a little break and using the other calculator for a bit because it looked pretty, but you can get a bit more granular detail when you have one that shows a bit more of the aspects in this kind of way. And now, please, I'm not trying to be super technical here. This is just about trying to get a learning behind how characters are developed and how that relates to the astrology at hand, because there are really interesting relationships between the two. So, what was I just saying? This is Uranus. I was right. I should just trust myself. I've been listening a lot to Uranus and Neptune from Sailor Moon, their theme song and the violin. It's really pretty. I will post that later. Next, coming around here, Wonder Woman's got her vertex in Cancer, as well as Chiron is in Cancer. Pluto is actually in Leo. So she's a Pluto and Leo baby. And I think generationally, there's a lot of, she came up at that time of like the war. If you even think about the movies, it's like this emblem of justice and the shield, that kind of thing. Going around here, we've got Neptune in Virgo. And then we've got the North Node, so that's opposing it. And that's in Libra. So that makes sense because Libra is very much about justice and fairness and all of that. Having the North Node there makes a lot of sense. That's something that she will aspire, like Node of Destiny, something she's going to work towards. Libra does also rule partnerships and relationships, and so this is probably where this whole opposing thing is going to happen, where this is where we're going to get with why her and Superman vibe a lot, because even though she's got this like Steve Reeve connection, that Steve Reeve, is that what his name is? Steve Rogers. I always feel like Wonder Woman's love interest sounds too much like Captain America's alter ego, Steve Rogers. I have to, oh my gosh, I'm that's not about them today. I'm getting sidetracked. So North Node is in Libra, coming all the way around, and we've got Capricorn here, and we've got Mars there with the moon, and Port of Fortune in Aquarius, as well as Mercury in Pisces, and Venus here, just nestled in right before the sun is in Pisces. So let's put a tab on anything happening with Pisces before we get to Superman. But I'm going to get into her aspects next. Wonder Woman's aspects. So your aspects are the angles in your chart that all those different planets make. First, I like to do this little scorecard on the side up here where you're smaller here. So if you go over here on the side, you can see there where it says cardinal. Let me go here. Aha, you can see my cursor now. Let me just go this. So cardinal, fixed, mutable, and then fire, air, earth, and water. All of the planets basically sit in these types of modalities or these types of elements. And so you yourself as an individual will have your own scorecard of how much inclination you have towards what element and to what more modality. And I found that like she's pretty balanced, although I do find it interesting that she has a lot of earth, especially if we consider that story of her potential creation of being made of clay, being literally made of earth, being formed from the earth. And so of course you're going to have an aptitude here, like the moon there, that and if you would think of like more moon in Capricorn, it's a very practical moon, and you'll find that superheroes, like in her line of work, you can't exactly be super emotional. You need to be able to save people and put your own personal stuff to the side for the bigger picture of things, and that is very Capricorn, and an earth sign, so that kind of aligns with that as well. Okay, yeah, so that's all I'm going to say about that in terms of like the elemental breakdown. If you want to get your own elemental breakdown, we can for sure go through what all that means as well. But this is a synastry reading. This is not a fully in-depth one. I saw that someone has also asked for me to do a full breakdown of Elvis's birth and death chart, and so I'm going to be doing that next as a birth and death chart reading. But as it comes to each of these characters, I'll probably do some things along the lines of superhero teams, so you can kind of see even like elemental wise and modality wise why maybe some of these teams fit together. And that's pretty much why I did Dragon Warriors the way I did them. It's a way of like learning about astrology, and not such a, I guess, like this, right? But this is fun too, I think. Okay. If you see anything with a black box around it, that is a closer aspect. So she's got her Pluto trine the sun. That's anything having to do, so she and I have this in common. Your sun is very, very having a close aspect to Pluto, and Pluto itself is a generational planet. I like to say it's really activated right now because Pluto has just moved into Aquarius and the sun moved into Aquarius, and so they're together right now. And so anyone with those like sun and Pluto aspects, I have an opposition. She's got a trine here, which is harmonious, but even when I've looked at any interpretations of the Pluto trine, the moon, it comes with it just like intensity. And Pluto, regardless of it, is always going to be change and transformation. And while transformation can be positive, it's painful too, right? So it's just being able to have the strength and resilience to deal with that, because there is tremendous power, there is tremendous strength that comes out of the lessons and challenges that Pluto has for anyone with these types of aspects. So I think we see that with Wonder Woman and most superheroes, right? Let's see here. I'm not going to spend too much time with another aspect that she makes here that's harmonious is her Venus and Uranus. That kind of, I could see that, especially since like she was inspired by a polyamorous relationship. She's going to be unusual, but like still beautiful. So unusually beautiful in her own way. And so Wonder Woman at the time when she came out was, it's the 40s. She's an anomaly. I remember I was looking at some of the comics. I wonder if I have some extra images. I don't think I put them in here. Not in this one. I'll have it in the blog article I do about it. But it's just like, Wonder Woman, you're so scantily dressed. Put something on. And yeah, it's the 40s. But it's just this idea of being a strong woman and still having that feminine desirability at the same time. And I really vibe with that. That just nice little balance between those two aspects together. It's a nice thing to have. All right, Wonder Woman, that is your chart. Let's move on to Superman. Okay, so Superman, I'm going to have to explain all this too. Because Superman is a leap year baby. And this made it hard to run his chart because his birth date technically doesn't exist. So his technical birth date would be the way I calculated it. And it kind of would make sense that Superman's birth date wouldn't actually really exist, because he's not from here. He's like born on Krypton. But remember, it's the character. So let's try to work with it a little bit, right? So I put Superman's birth date is February 29th. This year is a leap year. So, a potential Superman could be born on the 29th. And he is the second oldest superhero created. The first being, who do you think it is? Dun, 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 the Phantom. Then Kevin showed me a bunch of like Billy Zane as the Phantom stuff and that purple suit. But Superman was created in 1938. And so 1938 is not a leap year, so I could not put that in the astro calendar. So I had to put it in, the closest one was 1940. I didn't know 1938 wasn't divisible by 4. It's not. That's how you can determine if it's a leap year. It's divisible by 4. And if you try to put it into an astrology calendar and it does not work. And fun fact, Clark Kent, so he celebrates his Clark Kent alter ego birthday on June 18th. And we're getting to a little story about this, that there was an actual comic book in the 80s that they celebrate Superman's birthday, and I think they determine that it's on a leap year. But firstly, I wanted to share this fun little comic strip because I find it funny. I had to keep crypto over here. Actually, you know what? Let me put myself here. There. Okay. False. I am also an expert astrologer. Using the June 18th birth date, I cast your horoscope, but the stars did not align. No, instead, the astrological laws point to Clark Kent being born on another date, February 29th, Superman's birthday. I don't know how everyone knows that, how he knows this. I guess he's an actual astrologer, perhaps. Why do you claim June 18th as your birthday? Being an abandoned orphan, I never knew my real birthday. June 18th was the day the Kents, my foster parents, found me. So this guy can tell that he has the birthday of Superman, but he celebrates his birthday on a different date. So Clark Kent. But yeah, I have crypto here and him like with the ship, and you know, Clark Kent and Superman, and the fact that the date that he was found is not the date that he has as his birthday, which is an interesting distinction to make. And also like this idea that this astrologer knows that. And I think that's also the idea of his birthday doesn't really exist because you're not from this planet. So I had to take some liberties when I ran Superman's chart, which you will now see. So Superman obviously was born not here. Let's actually, I don't know if this clip will, show it, but we'll see. So for the man who has everything, let this keep playing while I explain, I guess, a little bit. So in this comic book, there's this flower that basically has like taken over Superman, and he is in like this reverie. So I guess this is what this is. This is like Krypton. He's talking to his dad.
It was the happiest day of my life. When I first saw your beautiful little face, your tiny fingers squeezed my hand so tight, like you never wanted to let go. I've watched every step,
Okay. But yeah,
yes, that's it. Fight it, Clark. Fight it.
Yeah, so there's this like flower, and means it like takes Superman into like his memories, or and so he like thinks he's back on Krypton, and so you get this view of, yeah, so for the man who has everything, and this is when like Wonder Woman and Batman go in to basically save Superman on his birthday, and it's revealed that it's on a leap day. That's all I wanted to show for this piece, at least. I thought it would have a bit more of an obvious kind of like throw to, hey Superman, happy birthday, you're a leap year baby. But I think that comic strip kind of showed enough of what I wanted to. Okay, so being that I had to cast Superman's chart on the next best thing, which was the next leap year, which is 1940. He's a Pisces regardless. It doesn't matter what year it is. The thing that might be different, a couple things might be different actually, such as, I don't think it's funny though, because even though it's not exactly the right year, I can vibe with this chart. So let's just take a look. Sun in Pisces, Black Moon Lilith in Pisces. Mercury is also in Pisces. Now, in Aries, we've got Jupiter, which I think makes a lot of sense, right? King of the gods sign in the sign of Aries, the warrior sign. It's a nice balance to this more introspective of Pisces. At first, I was like, Superman's a Pisces? How does that make sense? But I was like, of course he is. He's very compassionate and very aware of the alls. He's a Superman, right? So aware of like the Earth's consciousness as a whole, and that is really Pisces' vibe in a very evolved state, I would say. That's what Pisces aspires to be when not trapped in dreamland, I suppose. What I find cool here is that this would put Venus right on his rising sign, so right on his ascendant, which would make him beautiful. And yeah, Superman's supposed to be like the epitome of what it means to be a man, right? So yeah, I'd see it and see that. And similar to Wonder Woman, not really the sun, but like his ascendant is opposing the North Node, which is also in Libra. Interesting. So I feel like that also kind of maybe vibes with the relationship idea, that it's harder to kind of have those close relationships because your destiny takes you to doing something of, higher justice, you're called to a higher kind of purpose to adhere to justice. And I heard an astrologer once say, like, when it comes to like a journey around the zodiac wheel, that Libra is a lot of like where the me becomes we. So this like disillusion of like what it means to be just like about yourself and really about like other people and your common man. And yeah, that's very much Superman and a superhero in general as well. Here as well, the South Node here, remember the past lives. I think thinking about this a little bit more, you could also say that it's like ancestor things. So the idea of you being the product, the dream of your ancestors before you, and and any kind of activity around the South Node are clues that are around that potentiality. So yeah, leave that there. And we've got Saturn as well, which is, I believe this is Taurus. I don't know where the notch is, unless this is on top. We'll see. I'll look at the aspects next. And then Mars is in Taurus. Makes sense because Mars is all about like drive and force and like how things get done, and having that in Taurus means that Superman doesn't give up when it comes to like setting a goal and doing things. You also have see here, yeah. So he also has Pluto in Leo, even with like the dates being a little bit different than what it would actually be based on when he was actually created. And then we've got Chiron in Cancer, which is just like Wonder Woman. And yeah, so Uranus is also in Taurus. Makes sense because those planets are a little bit more generational in nature, and so they take a little bit of a longer time making their path around the sun. There was something else I wanted to bring up before we move into the aspects. Oh yes, that is that both Clark Kent, so Clark Kent's birthday June 18th, and then when did Wonder Woman celebrate it again? It was not Wonder Woman. She celebrates it May 20 something, so late May. But what I wanted to point out was that those are both their alter egos, right? And like when we ask the question of like who's the real person, is it Wonder Woman or is it Diana Prince? Is it Superman or is it Clark Kent? And I think the answer is both, but I do find it also interesting that Diana Prince and Clark Kent are Geminis, as opposed to Wonder Woman being an Aries and Superman being a Pisces. So they both pretend to be Geminis. It's funny, considering what Gemini is and represents as a sign. Now, Superman's aspects. There's a sun and moon square because the moon is in Sagittarius. Did I miss going through that? That's okay. Let's go through actually also the scorecard here. He's got an even, actually no, he's got mostly fire that I feel like he keeps in check. And I think also, remember, like Superman gets all his powers from the sun, so to have that fire within him is makes sense. He's got like laser eyes too. It makes sense. And cardinal initiatory, a lot of cardinal aspects about starting something, initiating something, leader of the Justice League, Superman, right? So it does make a lot of sense that you'd have a cardinal fire apex on his character type and personality. And the sun being square with the moon, I could kind of see that with a character type like Superman, because your deeper emotions, it's not necessarily like it's always going to vibe with what you have to present and do. I think I've said this before, but ultimately there's a lot of talk about how astrologer, I have evolved in thinking about your sun sign as being your personality, and more of your personality is also tied to like your ego and like that mask of how you're playing the game. So if you think about your rising sign as being more of that frontward personality, and the sun being what fuels it and drives it. And if we take that into consideration, having the sun in Pisces for Superman makes a lot of sense, because having a greater awareness of the greater consciousness of the world is something that would fuel how he does things. And I think he's an Aries rising. So being an Aries rising, you're that warrior type, and that's going to be how things are presented, and that is how he presents. But that soul purpose is going to come from a deeper consciousness, awareness, purpose, higher order, destiny that is always there, being able to speak to, like, you know, his father in dreams. And even what that episode was where we even figured out his birthday is very Piscean in nature, like that whole story, how that even played out. Yeah, so let's get into the synastry between Wonder Woman and Superman. And I should have brought up the comic. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. I have this comic. The comic that so I'm going to maybe start reading you guys the Multiversity on my TikTok tonight. It's like bedtime stories, cosplay stories. But, oh yes, this is the great comic book. Let's do this, and then I'm going to show you the scene of this comic book, and then we'll go into the synastry, and then we will wrap. I went a little longer than I thought I would, actually. So this is the comic. Now, I'm a little conflicted. This is the New 52, and there's the Crisis on Infinite Earths that happened in April of 1985, the month and year of my birth, where they killed Supergirl, Huntress. There's a whole slew of superheroes because they were trying to clean up the multiverse. And out of that, they rebirthed some storylines. And, you know, I am conflicted about the New 52. But I like this storyline. Superman comes to Wonder Woman, and they're talking about how Diana, she's sitting all alone on the moon, and it's a full moon, so this is actually makes sense. Diana, Clark asks, "How's Steve?" Angry. Steve was angry with her because Steve was kind of upset with always being kind of like this tag along, I don't have superpowers part of the team. When I first came here from Paradise Island, I was shocked to see that men and women weren't at war like I'd known. Oh my gosh. Like I'd grown up believing. Okay, I couldn't even read that. So blind, it's so dark. Yeah, so when I first came here from Paradise Island, I was shocked to see that men and women weren't at war with each other like I grew up believing. They were in relationships. Now remember, yeah, because the Amazons, like Theseus fought the Amazons, right? For a short time, I thought that their relationships were simple, and if they liked one another, then they were together. But I couldn't be more wrong. Oh my gosh, Wonder Woman, how naive. You just liked each other, you're together. So I can show you here. They're just having that conversation. Relationships are complicated. This is what Superman says. And for us, even more so. I have another identity. So he's telling about Clark Kent. And she asks the reporter, "My name is Clark Kent." And then she's like, "Why do you have an identity like that?" "I grew up with it. And I kept it when Superman came on the scene to protect the people I'm close to." And she asks, "And it worked?" And it's worked. And then Superman says, "I don't know." And they basically bond over the fact that they're very much alone. And I think that you can kind of see that in how Venus plays in their charts. We're going to get into their synastry where they connect as well. We're not like anyone. People like us really... Wait, no. People like us really are alone, aren't they? Ooh, this is like hot, steamy stuff. "Do you ever feel alone?" "Of course I do." And then they kiss. So, I'm going to show that scene. I'm sorry that took so long to read, because I couldn't read it. I'm so blind. But yeah, I have some images, of course, of them because they're the bomb. And just this quote of, like she used to be very alone, a tingling on our lips, the tiny lightning of worlds colliding. For the first time since life was breathed into the clay of my body, the emptiness is gone. I am not alone. And that is the idea, that to have a counterpart, that, this whatever alignment and crazy synastry craziness that you might have, that there is someone for everyone. All right, so I'm going to get into actually the same scene. It's not as good as the comic. Sorry. I mean, I guess it's because, it's animation. It's for kids, and they don't want kids to... But here, I already skipped ahead. Sorry, guys.
I can show you.
Oh, shoot. Sorry, guys.
But I've learned a way to deal with it.
Alone?
Diana, of course I do. We're not like anyone.
Do you ever feel alone?
Diana, of course I do. But I've learned a way to deal with it. I can show you.
Hi, Mom. Hi.
Mustang Mach.
Yeah, that's not as good as the comic book, but they kind of got the gist of it. And also, they're in Athens, Greece. I don't think they're in, or maybe they are. They compare themselves to gods here, I think.
It's a beautiful view, isn't it?
It is. I forget to enjoy it sometimes.
This must have been what the view from Olympus was like. We're not like the gods, but we're not like them either.
We're not like anyone.
Do you ever feel alone?
Diana, of course I do. But I've learned a way to deal with it. I can show you.
Okay. I should have played it from the beginning the first time, but you get the idea. All right, back to the presentation. We are going to now go into the synastry. So we've got Wonder Woman, which is, let me double check that my people are right. Partner A. And then we've got partner B, which is Superman. And he's the orange. So blue is Wonder Woman and orange is Superman. So let's take a look. I like to also, I've taken such a different approach to how I've done this in the past, starting way back when I did that Johnny Depp Amber Heard one. You want to look at where the different planets play with each other, and remember that each of the planets have all, like speaking of Wonder Woman, have a lot of mythology and stories behind them that give us clues behind how they would play with the other person's characters. That's a good way to put it. Like, this is like a stage, and these are all the players on the stage, and how they interact with each other can give us a lot of information behind how this relationship will work out. So synastry is whenever you have two charts and you overlay them on top of each other. And it doesn't have to be for love readings. It can be, as I said, like we should do like the Justice League just to see the relationships and configurations between different astrology charts and groups of people. It'd be cool if us as a society took more of this into consideration. We thought of like even organizing people. Like I think that would be a very Age of Aquarius way of doing things. Throwing it out there. All right, so I already knew that there was going to be a lot of Aries interaction based on, hold on, there we go. I already knew there's going to be a lot of Aries stuff, but you can see already here that the sun for Wonder Woman in the blue is very close to Mercury in Pisces, and even more like this stuff here is all very interesting because this is where there's going to be a way for them to connect on a deeper level. This is all happening in that area where Pisces becomes Aries. So from like being able to speak about things that are just unspeakable, it's very easy to do for these two. And especially seeing the fact that Venus is very close to the it's Venus in her chart is also very close to the Black Moon Lilith in his chart. So that Black Moon Lilith, as you know, we did like a whole presentation about her as like the darker side of femininity, and in men as well, it's also a place where in the past one has maybe felt shame. So where perhaps Superman has felt shame in the past for following more personal dreams, you know, less of dreams that are like having to do with like saving the whole universe and things like that. She's able to bring that out in him. The Venus is very close to that. So she's able to love all those parts of him, like love the darker parts of him, love and be able to handle that, you know, like I was reading this little comic book about how like it was saying that like, you know, would Lois Lane be able to like handle having sex with Superman like fully bar none, balls to the wall? I don't know. Question. Other things here too is that the sun that is for Superman is very close, and I guess you can call that a conjunction. It's somewhat of a conjunction with her Mercury. So Mercury and Pisces people do tend to be more soft-spoken and will take their time to speak, but they're also going to be aware of everything that's not necessarily being said, and that's going to be a connection between the two of them, because he's going to be like that soul part of Superman is going to be seen and acknowledged, and it will be verbally communicated from Wonder Woman's perspective, and that can be very healing, and it's a good thing for someone like Superman to have that kind of I don't want to say validation, but it's more like to be able to bring that part out in him. Let's take a look more at like the rising sign thing, because that's kind of like how you're playing the game. And really I should have kind of started there, but I wanted to like look at the fact that there was all of this activity where like the sun is happening, and if you're approaching any kind of synastry reading, that you are going to, the personal planets, so your astro stack, your sun, your moon, and your rising sign are all going to play big parts in that initial part of that relationship. You can get into like deeper parts of the relationship as you go, like it's like stronger aspects, which we will get into as well before we wrap, of course. So the moon here, I'm trying to see here, so the ascendant, I guess I do the ascendant of both charts here. Sorry, I'm just like speaking out loud, so because this is live, right? So the ascendant of the inner ring is Wonder Woman. So his moon, yeah, so Superman's moon is close to her rising, if I have the time somewhat right. I think this makes sense because it would mean that Superman's deeper emotional self, and remember I was saying before, like, there's a square between the moon and the sun in Superman, which makes a lot of sense. I would think that you'd find that in someone like Batman. You'd find that, and like, think about it, like, you literally have a mask in between your deeper between those two selves, the deeper subconscious self and the outer self. And this deeper self, having this in Sagittarius, is the one that's aimed the higher mind thinking sign, and flying, all that in the moon is like, that's the side that he keeps his cards to himself. So even though like this chart is Superman's chart, it also just speaks to, as a personality, that the emotions are tied to being able to fulfill that higher purpose. So yeah, makes sense. And then also having this correspond to Wonder Woman's rising sign means that there is a connection between how she outwardly presents as Wonder Woman and Superman's deeper emotional state. That's like a really deep connection there. They both do have Pluto's close. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, except for the fact that Wonder Woman has a trine with Pluto and the Sun. So let's take a look there and see if there's any activities as it comes between the two of them. Oops, I didn't mean to do that yet. Hold on 1 second. I don't want to spend too much time. I want to bring up other things that you may want to look at in your own synastry charts as a learning opportunity, because remember, your chart is very important. It is very valuable. You don't want to necessarily just be flashing it to anyone at any time. Oh yes, the vertex. That's a good one to look at. So the vertex for Superman is in Libra. Makes sense. And then the vertex for Wonder Woman is in Cancer. So the vertex is where you're going to look for it in the other, in something external than you. So whether it's a teacher or a partner or someone who has the sign, or even that as like an idea, it's going to be something as far as destiny that's going to pull you in that direction. That is one of the few things in the chart that is external, as opposed to this all playing within, even though you're playing in an external game, right? Now, having this here, whenever there's activity between a vertex and the other individual's chart, it means that there is some sort of connection there. And you can see it here where there's the vertex. Wonder Woman's vertex is located very close to the Chiron in Cancer. Also, something interesting is that they do have both of their Chirons in Cancer, meaning that healing can come from just being able to have a stable home life. Now, this is going to be tough because you're, as a superhero, like, that's like one of the sacrifices. If you think about it, you give up stability of home. But this also can also indicate a lot of pain as it comes to the mother, because Cancer is ruled by the moon and represents a lot of like the mother wound, and Chiron being the wounded healer is about a lot of working around that relationship, and for different reasons. Having this here can mean that within Superman, Wonder Woman can perhaps find she will be able to heal him from that, and that will serve her purpose in some sort of way, which which I think that does kind of happen. I don't quote me on that. I haven't read all of like the comic books. It comes to their relationship. If people want to tell me more about that, I am open to it. And last thing, let's just take a look at Venus in both of their charts. Just because Venus is the goddess of love and relationships and beauty, and seeing where she sits in relationship to the other person can give us insight. So Venus here on the inner ring for Wonder Woman, we already kind of said here, like, having it here where Black Moon Lilith is means that like she'll actually like see his like darker side and be okay with it. Having here with Mercury means that like they will be able to talk about things that are deeper and that they care about and love with no problems. I'm trying to find, oh yes, Superman's Venus is in the sign that Wonder Woman's sun is in. And that alone, even though it's not necessarily a super close aspect, that's already going to come with it the fact that like she embodies an archetype that he's already going to feel an affinity to. I mean, I also have a Venus in Aries, and you're going to be attracted to what is expressed in someone who has a sun or a rising in Aries as well. Superman also being an Aries rising helps with that fire connection between the two. There are more to their aspects as well. Like, not everything's harmonious. There are things that they would butt heads on, and I would imagine, of course, they would. And it's not necessarily a relationship that's like meant for like long-term success, but I think both of these two individuals, as it comes to being superheroes, are you meant to be in long-term relationships that are drama-free? Probably not, but there is hope here. Like, that's the point of running charts, is that there are storylines available here. Like, if you're not going to save the multiverse, that you'd be pretty happy just having a nice home life with a dog and a couple kids and a farm. But I think that's the whole idea of what we're doing here too, and living out life as a video game. It's like, what storyline are you playing, but also what story is the cosmos and the greater universe and the greater opera asking of you to be doing. And it takes true heroes to, you know, work together and put that ahead of wanting those other things, because maybe that can come after with celebrations. But I hope you liked this Neurolinguistic Astrology live presentation about the synastry reading between two of my favorite superheroes, Wonder Woman and Superman. And yeah, they do have a relationship. Remember, it's a multiverse, so in one or two of them, they're together. So I do love that about comics and the space that comic books leave for character development to play with it, but also remembering that there are parameters around things, right? You can't just make a Superman thing and be like, okay, like, I'm just gonna ignore the fact that it's been established that Superman's birthday is a leap day. That's just disrespect. And I think that's why what creators need to also bear in mind as we create new things and we're inspired by what has come before, but being able to have the respect, look into what has come before, so you don't think you made something new and really you're just remixing. And like, spoiler alert, everything is a remix. More than likely everything has been done before, and that is okay. We all gain our creative intel from the grand logos of where all creation comes from. So that's why astrology is so wonderfully magnificent and magical. It gives us this wonderful universal cosmic way of looking at things and developing characters and getting more insight into stories that we wouldn't have otherwise had. So I hope you learned something tonight, and if you found my content at all interesting, please give me a subscribe and a like, and I will have more content like this, including other superheroes, as well as more birth and death chart readings, as well as movies and pieces of creative content such as comic books and movies and their astrology as well, because everything, as long as it has a date in space-time, can be mapped to that with its energies, and then you can then pull that in with other synastries and get deeper insight into all of that. So I hope you had a good one, Starseeds, and wherever you reside in the cosmos, have a beautiful day, evening, wherever you are.